All right, this is being live streamed. Got it.
Got it. Cool. Oh my.
Can you guys hear me okay?
Sure.
Good?
I call to order our special directors meeting, 8th, 2023, time 12 p.m. Land of acknowledgement. We begin today by acknowledging that the land on which we gather is the traditional territory of the Woolastoq. These territories are covered by treaties of peace and friendship of the Woolastoq people, first signed with the British Crown in 1725. Attendance, has that been taken?
Yes.
Approval of the agenda?
Paul Amato.
Second, Dave
Second.
Morrison.
Any discussion? Ready for the question? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Are there any conflicts of interest for disclosure? Okay, at this time, I'd like to welcome Lisa Doucette and Greg Lutz from Pivot, who have joined us today. Getting here today has been a lot of work. We appreciate everyone participating in this process. This strategic plan is ours. We are the ones who created it, and now we have to do something with it. It shouldn't just sit on a shelf. If the board approves it today, then it will become the work plan for our committees, the staff, and all of us around the board table. What will happen next? I expect when committees start meeting, they will take time to review it and know their sections of it, and to start coming up with ways to put it into action. The staff will know the strategic plan inside and out, and we will be discussing it at future board meetings and making improvements as we go along over the next 5 years. We will also be reporting to the public on progress of the strategic plan on a regular basis. Local government reform has been challenging over the last 2 years. It is not quite over yet, and as long as we remain focused on our mission in this plan, which is to improve the delivery of sustainable services to our citizens, we will all be successful. Thank you. I will now ask for a staff report, the draft strategic plan, CEO John Smith, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and through you to the directors. I've prepared a little presentation here today, and just want to walk you through that. I'm just thinking, I think we get it up here now. So just talking about that, we're just looking at, the strategic plan and implementation guide. And, when we look, if we could go to the next slide, if we look when this all really began was back in January, when we had our orientation session, we talked about the necessity of a 5-year plan and an implementation guide and how we would work on this together. Since then, we've had interviews with directors, CAOs, one-on-ones with mayors and councillors. We had planning workshops, and we had a councillor survey as well to hear the input from all around the region. So we think that people should, or we believe that people should see themselves in this plan and in the implementation guide. And we have the draft strategic plan and implementation guide that was shared on May 31st, 2023. And we've been updating since based on comments and concerns and reviews that people have shared with us. We can go to the next slide, please. So the strategic plan and roadmap going forward, I'm not going to read all this to you. This is your collective vision, directors, members of the board, and the direction for the future based on what we've heard from you, how we're going to work together, that this is a living document. As our chair has so eloquently, this is going to directors, and this will go to the standing committees and will guide our priorities. Each of these strategic actions and outcomes have been prioritized and are in the implementation guide. And this will be operationalized with, based on the initiatives and projects that we take moving forward with each of the committees. And in terms of this, we have to be always aware that this is going to be measured. It's going to be a continuous learning process. And most importantly, it's going to be reviewed annually. you will have the opportunity as the board, as the governing body, to make changes. And we will take that direction as we go and we work it through the committees, and we'll come back to the board on that. So if we could go to our next slide, please. You remember when we had the session right here in this very boardroom to develop the values and guiding principles, and they're all there. The number one takeaway I've taken from this as your CEO is the fiscal responsibility. I've heard the message, I've heeded it, I understand it. There are going to be some costs. We're going to try to leverage every dollar we can throughout the province, federal government, any other government we can find. We'll figure out a way to leverage that, and we'll do it in fiscal responsibility. But at the same time, we're going to work together collaboratively, equitably, and we're going to have respect and responsibility for what we do. So we go to our mission and vision on the next slide, and we look at that. When we talk about a partner, we talk about facilitating collaboration and cooperation on matters of regional interest to improve the delivery of sustainable services to our citizens. We go to the next slide, please. We look at our mission and vision in terms of that, our vision, which is really your vision. We're going to be the team that implements for you a region where rural meets urban. I love that because it truly describes us in every way, shape, and form of who we are as a region. And in there, we continue to talk about fostering collaboration between the communities and celebrating our uniqueness and celebrating our successes, promoting our region both inside and outside of our communities. And that's what we need to do. We have to develop that team. And I think we're developing it nicely. We have a mix of experienced and new leadership, and it's really coming together for the benefit of the people of the region. Can I have the next slide, please? We share our collective mission and our vision. So we look at our vision. Our focus is on establishing clear goals to create vibrant and healthy communities. It's quite a statement. We're out there, and then we go on and we look through this and we say that we're going to ensure that our residents have access to the services they need. Well, those are within our mandated services, understanding that we have a role to play, and we're going to work with our partners, provincial, federal, municipal, and we're going to do this. And that also takes in our NGOs and NPOs in the area under our social file. We're going to work with those committees as we discussed at our board meeting on Tuesday evening about physician and healthcare recruitment. Those are services. We have tourism and economic development services that have been developed, and we're starting to see the benefits already of implementing them. And we're only really, 6 months in. So we're really starting to see this. And one of the things that struck me in our vision was by sharing the knowledge, resources, and assets, and that we can create a more inclusive, prosperous, and diverse region. We see that all the time. We see that in various communities. We're growing the diversity, our newcomers, welcoming people. That's who we are. That's who we are as Maritimers. That's who we are as New Brunswickers, and that's who we are in the capital region. If I could go to the next slide. We look at our 5-year strategic plan goals and our outcomes for the mandated areas. And all of those were developed by you, your counselors, your CIOs, the input that we heard. Our first tranche of this was talking to the key stakeholders, the people that live it, breathe it, and work it every day. And you work within that, and you really are the community leadership. You are the community consultation that we needed to talk to, and we need to know the direction from you. And then committees will take on other roles. They'll go out and talk to community groups. They'll talk through consultation. They'll bring communities of practice together. We talked about that as well on Tuesday evening. So we'll look at those and we'll heed those lessons and that advice, and we'll continue to refine our plan and develop as we go. We go to the next slide, please. So the implementation guide and the KPIs. The guide is not set in stone. This is a guide to guide us to where you wanted us to go. We're going to be the implementation tool, and this is going to be reviewed annually. And at any point in time, we can have that conversation about what needs to be fixed. And as a collective, you always have the right to do that. Nobody's going to take that away from you. Committees will make Suggestions, the board will approve it. No different than how we exist today. But this is a first step. It was never intended to be perfect. It's meant to be a big first step. And like I said, when I opened up, we have a newly formed, or I guess a newly expanded mandate. And we have new people around the table, and now's our time to really shine and bring this forward. We can go to the next slide, please. So moving forward, post-approval. So today, hopefully we'll approve our plan. We'll finalize it and translate it, of course. We live in a bilingual province, and we're always open to ensuring that our documentation is available, and we understand our linguistic duality of the province, and we respect that. We are going to forward the approved strategic plan and implementation guide to the Department of Environment and Local Government. And the reason that we're doing that is because that was part of the rollout and part of the mandate, and in our guide, our development guide, how to develop our 5-year strategic plan. We're going to commence discussions with each and every one of you on operationalizing our plan together through the standing committees. And that'll be that work that's happening. Most of the committees have met. Some we're just still planning, but we've been having meetings to get ready to plan. And some will be called through the summer months to receive reports that need to be heard and reported back on to the committee and knowledge transferred. And then we launch our strategic plan, hopefully, on June 28th at 11 a.m. in the morning at a Killarney Lodge. We felt that that was a real symbolic gesture of where we would launch that, where rural meets urban, in terms of that. So there's a motion within the next slide, please. There's a motion within the package. And I won't speak to the motion. That's for you, but it is there. You see it. It's in the package. And then the last slide, please. I'd like to take the opportunity to say thank you in so many ways to all of you. And especially to the team at Pivot. I thank Greg and Lisa and Will and in the early days, Juan. I certainly want to make honorable mention for them. They were all here helping us, and they've been helping us in so many other ways to develop this plan and guide us. We have our strategic planning workshop infographic over on the wall. We laminated and put it up because people were so proud that day of all that work that we made. And we shared those pictures. We put it in the news and notes. It worked great. We have our guiding values and principles. Those are the ones, again, that you developed. They're on the wall now. They're all laminated. They're not going anywhere for a while till we revise them. But those are for you and all of us to look at, be reminded of where we started to where we've come from to where we are today. And I think we're in a very good place. As I said from day one at the various meetings, I'm a bit of I don't know what the right wording is. I'm very competitive. I'll say that for lack of better wording. And I really want us to be that first. I want us to have a good, solid plan. I want to celebrate this with our provincial partners, our municipal leadership, and all of the people that have made this possible. And I think we need to get there. So, Madam Chair, thank you.
Thank you. Could I have a motion on the floor now, please? Dale, do you want to say your name first so we have for the record, please?
Dale Mooring. Okay, I move that the Capital Region Service Commission adopt the attached strategic plan 2023 to 2028 entitled Where Rural Meets Urban and its accompanying implementation guide.
Have a seconder?
I'll second Marty Forsyth.
Thank you. Any discussion? And I'm just going to go around the table in order. So Director Bigger. Howard? Yes.
Absolutely. Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to start by thanking Pivot Consulting for their participation in this process. But it was always difficult because I've heard this many chats around the table and around a very complex topic. You were very gracious in your leadership of these things. So I really appreciate it. And city staff, Capital Service Commission, very impressed with how seriously this endeavor was taken and how much time and energy has gone into it. That being the case, and my thank yous beside me, I do think we're moving a little too quickly at the moment. It's not my intention to vote for the motion on the table as it's currently phrased. It would be my preference in summary to slow the process down to allow for some more changes. We'll briefly discuss two of these changes. These have been discussed with mayor and senior staff of the city of Fredericton and a number of their councilors. Our team at the city of Fredericton do a similar exercise to this every electoral cycle. We meet, we establish a council vision, mission statements, and so forth, and then we tackle the process of trying to dovetail, some abstract governance ideals and values into our current standing committee system. Rubber hits the road, and that's often where the challenge happens, and where there's some delays in the process are kind of inevitable. We've got so many different levels of legislation that we have to make sure is or just collaborates with our city initiatives. And this same is no different for the Capital Regional Service Commission. We're a creature of provincial legislation, and we've got a lot of different policy areas that have got provincial legislation in them. And we need to make sure that those align with our strategic priorities and strategic plan before moving forward. It's my understanding right now from some of the work that we have in front of us that there's a bit of a misalignment between provincial legislation and how we can then translate that into a strategic and then tactical plan to help guide this organization forward. The first example I'll use is in public safety. We've chosen a key performance indicator of the crime rate. We use language, in our document that says we will coordinate the efforts of, the police departments and so on and so forth. And to me, that all seems very contrary to the Provincial Police Act, wherein it's very clear that mayors and councils cannot actually tell police or the police of jurisdiction in their area how to do operations. All we can do is have strategic and maybe budgetary conversations around the adequacy of policing. So it's kind of a level higher removed. So if the city of Fredericton saw that we were going to try to import a crime rate statistic into the, as a KPI for our strategic plan, we immediately become very concerned because we don't actually have any policy levers that we can use to affect correct. So we wouldn't choose that as a KPI. We would use the language in the act that says adequacy of policing in your community instead of actually a KPI that's a crime rate that's created by combining a variety of different crime occurrences in the community and then and so on and so forth. Anyway, it creates in my opinion, I guess in the opinion of the city of Fredericton, it creates the illusion that we have more control and more influence than we actually do. And these documents need to be strategic and kind of a higher level. So that's one of the concerns we have. And there are other similar concerns, and most of these things, don't have to do with the high level vision or value statements or anything like that. It's at the point where we take those values and political ideals and start to kind of blend them into what we know our services and our interests to actually be. Another example of this misalignment, I think, comes out of the solid waste recommendations, where we don't even reference the provincial solid waste strategy or its pillars. And it seems to me that we should be reflecting on how we choose to implement those pillars of the provincial solid waste management strategy through what we actually have on the ground in our actual current services. So it should be a conversation about how we're making good on the provincial thing by using tools and infrastructure we have at our disposal. But instead, we don't reference it at all. And then we have some things that aren't in their plan, and that's fine. But it just seems misaligned. And I also have a few concerns and a few questions coming from the staff report that was presented. I didn't see in the document a statement of First Nations engagement that was conducted. And if that's a requirement of the plan under the Regional Service Delivery Act and regulation, we need to have a, something like that very kind of clearly delineated as, the indicators of us performing this task, because we've been set this task by the Department of Environment or Department of Local Government. Anyway, so I think my plan today on behalf of the City of Fredericton is to not support the motion on the table and hope that we can put this through another iterative cycle where we can hear more from our member communities and develop a plan that's a little more aligned when it comes down to where our visions and values meet the business that we're known to have done well over the many years of the Regional Service Commission's existence, and also to align it with the new mandated services and some other things. And as a final note, it's a little strange to see such a large section appealing to the residents of the capital region. We're an association of member communities, not unlike the Union of Municipalities or any of those other associations. So we're kind of a group of groups. And you wouldn't see in the UMNB any appeals to residents of their communities because they're represented by the elected officials that serve as their members. So it seems to kind of give a misaligned vision to someone who's reading this from the public. Might they then think they can come to our meetings and make interventions and so on and so forth? And the answer to that, based on our procedural bylaw and structure, is no. It's the directors that do that. If they want to interface with issues that might have a Capital Regional Service Commission impact, they need to talk to their own communities, duly elected mayor and council, and have that brought forward to them. Anyway, Madam Chair, those are my concerns and the concerns of the City of Fredericton.
Thank you. I do believe that our CEO, John, can answer a few of those concerns.
Through you, Madam Chair, to Deputy Mayor Erickson. Sir, with all due respect, on the very last one, that section was removed. In case I don't know if
To
you're
our
aware of that.
residents, yeah.
To our residents, that was removed from the plan, yeah. And the last version. Just a couple of things on the with public safety with respect to crime rate as a key performance indicator. That would go back to the committee, and the committee would look in terms of defining that further. I know that Director Morrison has had a meeting and they've reported back, and the mandate is to share, collaborate, and understand and raise those voices. So that would go back through the committee structure, understand how would we measure that moving forward, and then report back to the board. The same with solid waste on the provincial plan. We did make reference in there to the PPP and the circular materials piece. You'll see those in there. And if plans are not fully vetted or ready at this point in time, it's hard for us to make our bold statement of how we will address those when they, in terms of that. We do have a very professional, dedicated staff at the Regional Solid Waste in our Solid Waste Division that have won many awards and recognitions for, environmental pieces, gas recovery, innovation. We've won lots of awards and received lots of accolades of praise on that. With respect to First Nation and Indigenous engagement, I've actually one of the meetings I did attend right out of the gate. We've had the luxury of having kind of a personal friend and advisor to me, that has been helping guide us through our engagement with First Nations here in the province or here in the region. In the three that we have, and we may even have some responsibility to reach out to the Passamaquoddy or Bestmagadi as their in the traditional name. And so we've held meetings at the officials levels with two communities. Another one is being planned now. I attended one of these meetings with one of our directors from the board to open that dialogue and that conversation. And we've met with Jedi the Joint Economic Development Initiative, which is really an economic development agency for First Nations in the province, to see how we could start to talk about developing synergies between what we're doing on economic development and what they're providing on economic development. Mr. Fitzgerald accompanied me to that meeting, and we had a very robust meeting. I've met with the city First Nations liaison and representative to talk about how we ensure that we are aligned with one another and how we would like to work together to move forward, so that if we're doing something with I'm probably going to say it wrong because I'm not overly familiar, but with St. Mary's or Sistancic First Nation, that we're in alignment with what the city and other partners are doing in the region. So we're trying to align all of that. We have other meetings planned, and we have not taken this to chief and council yet. I have not. And that's on me. And the reason being is that we didn't have a plan. Well, you go in and you start talking about, hey, could we find some synergies on this level?
Yeah.
Well, what level is that? What are you doing? What are your KPIs? What are your plans? What are your goals and your objective under that screen? So it was hard to really talk and engage fully on that particular piece. And I didn't want to be disrespectful and waste anyone's time. So yeah, it's a slow process, but the reality is, and for those on the committee or in terms of the board that don't know this, I spent 6.5 years of my life as the executive director of Aboriginal Affairs for the province of New Brunswick. Had much success and had much dealings within our First Nation communities and our Indigenous communities throughout New Brunswick, and understand a lot of the nuances of being there and being present, but being real when we're at the table. And this plan will give that to our communities in order to engage more fully. I don't know if that answered all the questions, Madam Chair, but through you to the member.
That's a excellent description of the activities and the kind of strategic engagement strategy that was both executed and also intended for later date. But it doesn't address the very simple question about why a statement to that effect is not in the plan if it's part of the legislation. And I have to admit as well, there have been changes to this document that we haven't seen. We need to see those changes before we can vote on it. And the photocopied version that I picked up on the corner of that desk has that member statement in it that you just said was removed. So I'm a little concerned the process here is moving so fast that we haven't actually even conformed to the procedural bylaw that would normally attach to approving a motion or a plan or a document.
We'll address that concern later. I know I have the latest version and corrections were made in that because it came out yesterday. Yes. Okay, we're going to move on. Thank you. Dr. George.
Thank you. So again, I echo the comments already made for the pivot team, staff, and all directors and CAOs and everyone else who participated in this process. And I love the tagline. The vision statements and guiding principles are fantastic. There are some things lacking that I'd be remiss if I don't mention. In particular, I'll focus on public safety and I'll give a statement. I slaughter statements. So there's a saying, but I'm going to turn it backwards. I don't know if we're failing to tread where angels fear, or we're fearing to tread, or we fear to tread where angels fail to tread. When it comes to public safety. And I say that in respect to, in particular, fire service. We, in Arcadia, I have inherited, much like many communities within the province, a system that is a hodgepodge of fire services put together throughout this province, managed by the provincial government, say that loosely, and we are now responsible for governing a service that consumes the largest single budget item of Arcadia's budget goes to fire service. And it is challenging to see us make investments to grow our community and participate in regional infrastructure and whatnot until such time as we get a good handle on where our dollars go. And this is for a service that is not mandated to be provided, like policing is mandated to be provided policing. Fire service is not mandated. I just feel that this document is weak when it comes to the discussion of public safety. There's mention of policing. There's a lot of focus on EMO. I'll just frankly say EMO works from a region that has actually participated quite significantly with disaster or have we had disaster in our community in 2018, 2019, and EMO stepped up and helped us through that, and it just worked. I don't have that same confidence when it comes to the governance of fire service in our community. And if part of the guiding principles to amplify the voice of mayors and council throughout the capital region, I think that amplified voice can really be focused on making sure that, you know, fire service is receive direction. Fire service receives investigation as to what's good in guiding principles and policies to help communities deliver that service to their residents. I'm no way discounting the value of fire service in our communities. These are volunteers that do a great job, but without governance, we know what happens. So, and I feel there's a lack of governance right now, and I look to this board and the directors to have that more adequately worded in our strategic vision. I think it's a good document, and I readily admit that this is an exercise in progressive elaboration. And I get that we're new to the table. However, I think that is lacking in this current version, and I'd like to see that enhanced, because it is a grave concern to my community and to me, looking at how we move forward with lack of governance.
Thank you. John, would you like to respond?
Just very quickly, Madam
Yes.
Chair, through you to the director. If you look, you know, under the public safety in terms of what we will do, our statement on that, and then we look at the implementation guide in the first 6 to 12 months. We start right out of the gate with, we will collaborate with law enforcement, fire services, and emergency management agencies to address public safety concerns. And I think within there would also be the public concerns, Director Bleedwell, in all fairness. I think the committee is, I think it's an astute board that, our committee that's been struck. And I think that those are certainly things that we can do within that. And, you know, I think when we're looking, when we're identifying programs to advance, then this is one of the things, again, what we will do. Identify programs to advance infrastructure improvements, enhancement public safety, road safety, pedestrian friendly. It doesn't mean that we couldn't add, you know, that fire service wouldn't be part of that. It's what the committee hears. And I think that's where we need to go with that and bring that back to the committee, let them do their work, bring it back to the board, and we make those statements and try to help our member communities. Thank you, Madam Chair.
If I could respond. So, you know, a very simple change on bullet point number 2 is to make it such that educate and inform members, communities about fire service procedures and create a space where communities can discuss cost sharing and alignment would fix it for me. I don't see emergency measures at all broken and requiring the largest number of words even in that we will statement.
Yeah.
And being the community that probably represented the largest amount of emergency measures effort being used in the last 5 years, that would be my statement.
Thank you. We'll move on.
I won't bother to repeat all of the nice things that everyone has said about how it happened, just to say well done so far. So where rural meets urban is also where low taxes meet higher taxes, meet fewer services, more services. And I'm just going to kind of state the obvious again, that there is not much tolerance for tax change in our rural areas. We've had a lot of tax change this year, and it hasn't met with any loud clapping out in the woods out there to say you've done a great thing. So while this is a wonderful plan, each juncture of the plan will provide us with an opportunity to change the way we deliver services, to improve the way our region functions, and a risk increasing costs to our citizens. The only tool that we'll have to work with, as the CEO has talked about earlier, is information. So at this table, every time we make a decision, and at the committee level, every time we make a decision, it's not only having information, but as we can see from the comments this morning, the right information. So that when it comes here and we're making a decision and it happens to be a tough one, where we are increasing costs because costs will go up, then we can all be confident that at least we're doing it with the best possible information. And that's stated in here. I just wanted to emphasize that from my point of view.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to the call-ins, and we'll start with Director David DeCoursey. Do you have any comments?
I think it's a great document, but I agree with some of the comments that have been made this morning. I don't think we're quite there yet. I think it needs to be enhanced and cleaned up to some degree. It's like a few things I've seen, like it's just, we seem to have to move too fast. And I get nervous on that.
Thank
That's my
you.
comment.
Thank you. Director Dave Morrison.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's been repeated again and again that it is a great document. It's a lot of work put together in a very short time. But I tend to agree with Director Erickson and Director Pleadwell. There's a few things missing or overstated, and I think it wouldn't take a whole lot of time and effort to tighten up a little bit. I think we'll have a better document for it.
Thank you. Director Marty Forsyth.
I like the document, and one thing that was said through the whole thing is this is a working document that can be changed through committees, talking to people, bringing it back to the board, and you can change it. It's a working document. There are some changes that could be done and they could be cleaned up a little bit. But again, it is a working document. Everybody's worked hard to put it in place and gave up their time and efforts. And staff aspect is pulling it all together and bringing it back. But to get it started, you first have to approve something and then work through it so that you make it better. This is a 5-year program, and this is 6 or 7 months in now to start the plan. So with the working document, I agree a lot with what was said, but again, it is a working document, so it can be changed. So moving forward, I think it's not a bad thing to put it into place and fix what needs to be fixed, but move with it. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Director David Sweeney.
Yeah, I agree with Director Forsyth. There's a lot of work that can be done to this, and I think we move ahead now and with this and just work on it as we make it through our time as directors.
Thank you. Director Bob Powell.
Well, I think that plan is a great plan. It's sugar and candy and hugs and kisses, but like Marty had mentioned, it's a working document and we can change things as we go. So I believe it's a starting point, a good starting point, but I still don't believe that we can. There's still some mistrust between us as communities and the province. And for instance, they're trying to pass they can come in and affect our bylaws in our towns and villages. And they're trying to pass that. And we had no say or no conduct on that. And so I think that's an issue that we're going to have if we're getting standing orders from the province that what they're going to do. We have to be careful And I think, but in theory, I believe the plan is great and I'm gonna vote yes for it.
Thank you. David Hayward.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to mirror Director Forsyth's comments almost to a T. I believe it's an excellent starting point, and I really can't stress enough the importance of this being a working and evolving document. That's all.
Thank you. And next is Director Mike Richardson, who is representing Grand Lake.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, I'm filling in for Kevin Nicklin today, Mayor Nicklin. I do like some of the comments from the gentleman from Fredericton on the First Nations solid waste. I did look the document over last night, and I do believe it's very well done. It's very thorough. Also, one thing I did notice, and I'm glad the gentleman from Arcadia had brought it up, there's not much there for public safety or EMO. Our new municipality also in 2018, 2019 suffered with the floods. So I would like to see a little bit more information on that there. But other than that, I think it's very well done. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Tim Fox.
Hi, sorry folks, I got tied up in a work meeting here, so I'm quite late, but just continue on, I would say.
You don't have any comments for under discussion?
Well, I just joined, Madam Chair, so I think I'll hold off.
Okay, thank you. And actually, I just happened to look up because I've been watching the screen and I just seen your name there and I almost forgot to mention your name. So anyhow, there's no further discussion once around.
I'd like to comment now if I could.
Okay, since you didn't before.
Since I didn't
Yes.
before. I wanted to hear the other comments. I got to tell you that given the position I'm in, I feel difficult, you know, it's been a kind of a foot and two canoes here, it seems. But anyway, since 1986, I've been fighting and fighting and fighting with successive governments over the implementation of a fire protocol type of thing, because the LSDs over the course of years seem to get whatever, and you guys are now seeing it because you got several LSD fire departments who have different. I could talk about one that if they recognize that there was an airstrip in there, they have an airplane, because it just seemed that if they asked the province, they got, regardless of the cost. Then if you have a municipal fire department who has another municipality that's counting on you to provide them a service, you didn't have the money to spend. And fire is the single largest line item in our budget. So we have our fire department beside another fire department. We can only provide so many things where the province is providing so much. So I'm encouraged that finally, and I tried before 2013 to get the province to say, we have to look at fire because it is a huge cost. You have, well, we saw in Oak Bay here just recently that all the firemen walked out because St. Stephen was now going to tell them what to do in their local fire station. And that caused a big array. So I think, and I agree with Marty and Dave Hayward, I agree with some of your comments and Derek's, that over the course of time, we're going to work toward it. But I'm encouraged that finally, fire service is going to be looked at, because every fire department seemed to, I talk about it before, I say I buy my fire chief a telephone because of the mutual aid agreements, and all he has to do is call me and get all the firecraft he wants, as opposed to me having to spend $500,000 a year on the fire truck. Or that we bought a rescue truck that cost us less than $100,000, but was encouraged by the province that we should spend $250,000 because that's what everybody else has. And I said, we can't afford it. So I'm encouraged by it. And I thank staff and I thank of all the comments and everything, but that's kind of where I'm at. And I think going forward, yeah, there's some bumps in this, but going forward, it's a good document to begin with.
Thank you. And because only go around the table once for discussion, we're going to go to the question. Question? I think they're ready for it. So Kelly, would you like to call their names out and take the vote, please?
Absolutely. Okay. First one under the gun, Derek Cleveland.
Nay.
David Quissy,
Yes.
Mike Richardson, oh, he's gone.
Mute.
Mike Richardson. Okay, we'll go on for now. Dave Morrison,
Yay,
pardon me?
yay, yes,
Yay. Yep. Richard Corey,
Yes.
Tim Fox,
yes,
Mike Richardson,
Yay.
David Sweeney,
Yes.
Bob Powell,
Yes.
David Hayward,
He's on mute.
oh, he's frozen. He's frozen. Dave Hayward? Yeah, he's frozen. Okay, Don Bigger,
Yes.
Dale Mowbray,
Yes.
Judy Wilson She,
Yes.
Greg Erickson,
Nay.
and
Does the chair
Marty
get to
Forsyth.
vote?
Yes,
Dave Hayward. That's probably him. All right, is that you, David Hayward? He's having issues there. Anyway, it's yay for sure.
Okay, the motion is passed.
Madam Chair, we'll undertake to, those directors who didn't get through, will confirm their vote so that the minutes will accurately reflect the position of the director.
Absolutely. And one of the directors asked if, as the chair, do I get to vote? And the answer is yes. So I need a motion to adjourn.
motion to adjourn, Dave Morrison.
Seconder,
Second
Bob
by-
Powell.
Motion's adjourned. Thank you. And could everybody stay for a few minutes because our CEO, John Smith,